perspective, and how did you come up with the idea of this show, Beyond? Where did that originally come from?
Well, I came up with it by asking Adam if he had an idea. No, Adam, this was Adam's creation. I came later.
It came from needing to write a script to get a job, and it came from a lifetime of loving science fiction films and television shows, and also growing up, with these kind of early Spielberg, movies, E.T., Poltergeist, and wanted to do something like that, something that's centered on family and something that's character-driven, but also takes you places that you don't expect, and has, a supernatural pulse to it.
I got one for Burkely.
Thank you.
What was it that attracted you to the script when you first got approached with this project?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it is, you read a lot of scripts sort of coming out as being an actor, and the first thing is it's a very, very well written script. This is just a merit to Adam's writing ability, and the way that he not only puts together his words, but puts together his characters, his plot, his everything, the elements of the story has that you'll see in the show. It's an amazing character journey for Holden, emerging into this world and waking up and finding out who he really is throughout the season, and as well as being in a genre that, as Adam says, he's admired, as I have admired as well as a viewer. So being able to see all of those things in one script made me very excited to be a part of this.
Question for Holden.
Yes.
Did you originally audition for Holden or a different character?
I originally auditioned for Holden, and then I auditioned for Luke, and then I found my way back to Holden. So it's an interesting process of casting, and for the behind-the-scenes part of it, sort of seeing where everyone specifically fits in accordance to not only your abilities and what you do, but as opposed to sort of casting as a larger group. It's not obviously just me in the show. I have supporting characters and my family and guest stars that we see throughout. So in that entire vision, I found my way to securing the role of Holden.
And a question for Holden too. Can you tell us some of the guest stars that will come up on this season? Are there any names you can drop or anything like that?
We didn't really focus on guest casting for the first season because the nature of the show is so specific to this one character's point of view. We have guest roles, we have many arcs with different characters, but we weren't really interested in driving names to the show in its first season because we really wanted the emphasis to be on Burkely.
In fact, we would usually go in the opposite direction.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
if someone, if in casting someone transcended the character and you saw the actor, we'd generally go a different way.
I have a quick question for the executive producers. Did you guys pitch the show to Freeform when you had the idea for the overall story arc, or did Freeform come to you with that type of program?
No, I wrote the whole script, the whole pilot, and then they read it and loved it, and then I went in and pitched them the show, basically, where first season would go and where potential season 2, season 3, and so on would go. And they said, great, let's make it. I said, what? Okay.
I have a question for all three of you. So you guys all seem to be really heavily involved in the sci-fi fantasy genre just throughout your career so far. Is it something that you're just drawn to, or is it something that you really truly enjoy being involved with?
It's really the only place we can get gigs, at this point.
Yeah, I can't even understand lawyer doctor shows, let alone write one.
Well, everything's genre now.
Yeah.
It's hard to find something that's not, that you wouldn't be able to consider putting it in that category. These days, even the next medical show, I read the review, Pure Genius, is like a sci-fi, So it seems that there's sort of that bent in everything, and if anything, maybe we've got a little bit of a head start because we've been doing this for longer. But yeah, I never feel that limitation because I think I'm always drawn to material that is character driven and has a lot of urgency irrespective of its genre elements. I thought this pilot was a family drama writ large. It was about this young man going through what every young man, every young person has ever gone through in terms of trying to acclimate, except he's doing it with, already a grown-up body and no one to walk him through how to do it. And this sort of, behavior, this sort of desperation becomes represented by this larger metaphorical event, which is where the genre part comes in. But it's almost what I would call a low-key genre piece, in that the emphasis is really on this character and his journey in life.
So I have one more question for you, Holden. And I don't know if it was already answered, but what was the biggest challenge of you playing this character or bringing this character to life? What was the biggest challenge, or maybe biggest challenge?
Yeah, I think all challenges of the character, it was a fun challenge. I don't think anything was ever, something that I was angry, or it was fun to do. And I think one of the biggest parts of this character, though, that I could say was the challenge of creating him was the journey, as David and Adam are referencing. Is this character is constantly gaining momentum in this real world, and he's growing up, so he changes from scene to scene, to episode as he figures out who he is. All of these events that he finds himself in, he learns from, and he finds out, as we all do, we have these sort of defining moments of our adolescence that brings us into the young adults that we are, and we conduct ourselves in certain ways. So I think one of the fun challenges of this was building a character from his building blocks of being 12, 13, and waking up after a dozen years, is then creating the character that you'll see on screen.
So have you pulled from your own life?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's a lot of fun moments that I recognized in the writing and shooting of the show that I'd experienced. I remembered my first this, or my first event, or my first whatever. So I definitely draw it from my own life, and I also feel like it's going to be an identifying factor for the audience. Being like, oh my gosh, I remember my first kiss. I remember my first time, going to school. I remember my first. So there's a lot of different.
Smoking a joint.
There's a lot of different parts of the show that I feel are things that people experience in your adolescence that I think I recognize, as well as I think everyone else
Being
will.
abducted by aliens.
Everyone, it happens to everyone.
So this is a show that is probably going to be watched by people who have just binged Stranger Things, or sometimes maybe Black Mirror. What's maybe something new that the three of you consider is being brought with Beyond to the train or the genre overall?
Something new that's being brought with
Yeah.
to the well.
After they've just seen something like Stranger Things.
For me, it is the idea that this is not aliens, it's not ghosts, and it's not robots. Okay, it's a much deeper, much more human take on a genre piece, and that's what I think is terrifically unique about it, because it's not relying on those tropes in the same way that you see everywhere else.
It's definitely, as David was referencing then and as well as before, it's sort of encapsulated in the sci-fi genre, but it's really exploring sort of a nook that is in there, but it's something new, it's something unique, and I feel like when as you reference 3 or 4 shows that were all different feels, but in that genre, we would be included in that 4th category if you were going to refer to someone else's show, because we're bringing something new, something different that's in there, but it's going to feel very different than those shows.
I think at its core, it's a very human story, and it's a story about growing up. And it's a show that wears its heart on its sleeve, and that strangely is something that at least I found is unique to the sci-fi genre.
Question for both the producers. What went into the decision to release all episodes of season 1 at once versus weekly?
That wasn't our decision.
Yeah, that's a good
It's been explained to us as evidence of this company's faith in the show, that they've never done this before. It's a business, it being, the sort of, purging or binging business, not purging, binging business, that this was the first show that, in their estimation, met the requirements that would be a successful, swing at that. So I think at this point we're only hopeful, and we've been told that this is all to the good. But I've never done it before. I've never had a show of mine available like it's going to be, so it'll be it's virgin territory for me.
Kind of a follow-up to that, does that change your creative process and trying to get a whole series done?
Well, we didn't know about it until we were done with the creative process. So.
As far as because if shows are going on week by week, they can tweak them as they go, but then you have a whole series that kind of goes out at one time.
Yeah. we wrote we wrote every episode assuming that we'd have to convince people to come back a week later. So we worked extra hard to make sure those cliffhangers were extra juicy. That benefits any form of storytelling, really. So, but no, it hasn't. I imagine we would have told the same story at the pace that we told it if we knew about this decision a year ago versus recently.
Question for all three of you, going back to binge watching. What was the last show you guys binge watched?
I just finished Narcos, season 2. That would be the last one I did. That was on Netflix. So I just I watched the first episode, or the first season rather, and then I took a Saturday and I finished that second one off. I haven't seen it. It's good. Recommend.
I hear it's good.
Oh yeah. So slight bias.
Some issues.
Yeah.
What's the last one you binged?
Mine was, I think, from beginning to end.
Other than Battlestar.
Yeah. Other than
yes.
Other than Falling Skies.
Other than Falling Skies.
Yes. Probably Stranger Things, and I'm like an episode into Luke Cage.
Oh yes, I gotta start that. Me too.
I'm on episode 4 of Stranger Things, so I'm in mid binge.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming, guys.